Right now on Sports Extra, different quarterback, same result. Another Falcons loss on Sunday with continued turnovers and questionable play calls. How can the Dirty Birds turn things around now that we're at the midway point of the season? On the Dogs, they took down a top 15 opponent, and Georgia Tech is now one win away from bowl eligibility. We're talking all things across the college football world. And also, after starting the year 0-2, the Hawks have now won 4 in a row as a team now used to Quinn Snyder's offense and actually playing some pretty good defense. All that and so much more. Sports Extra starts right now. Yes, sir. Welcome on in, everybody. Welcome to Sports Extra. Thank you for staying up late with us. I'm Reggie Chapman. Well, not much has changed for the Falcons this week, even with a different starting quarterback. Falcons fans still left the Benz disappointed on Sunday. Let's get right into it. Allow me to direct your attention to this. It was a game that the Falcons probably should have won, but once again, they fell short. Drives stalled out, they had some costly turnovers, and really a bunch of interesting play calls and some bad moments. Now the Falcons are 4-5 and now in second place in the NFC South.
Well, certainly a missed opportunity. Give them credit, but yes, you can't sugarcoat it, make excuses. We had our chances, and we didn't get it done.
I expect guys to be a little frustrated. The biggest thing is you get 24 hours to be frustrated, You don't get to be frustrated, on Wednesday or Tuesday. You got to get back to work. And there's a lot of football left to be played. And I still believe this team has what it takes to be, as good as we can be.
Boy, am I fired up for today's show because I got two of the best in the business with me. The good news, Gabe Burns, you're Valdosta State Blazers, 9-1 in the football world right now, so you're probably feeling pretty positive and good. John Michaels, every team that you like, all lost this weekend. So
yeah, they all stink.
Yeah, they're all bad. We're going to really feed into that negativity, especially coming off this loss from the Falcons. John, 2 straight losses to teams that had either backup quarterbacks or guys that have never played football for that team before. Can you kind of contextualize how bad this loss was with Josh Dobbs coming off the bus 5 days removed from actually being on this roster and leading them to a win?
Yeah, it's called inexcusable is what you can call this. There's no excuse to lose to somebody like this. They were already starting a rookie quarterback in Jaron Hall, and you knocked him unconscious early on in the game. Joshua Dobbs, there was a tweet out afterwards that he didn't know the plays and didn't know most of his teammates' names, yet he's out there playing like it's backyard football, and you couldn't find a way to get the job done. The problem is right now you had chances early in the game to put this one away, and you didn't. When you start running tight end jet sweeps on 2nd and goal from the 1-yard line instead of handing it off, to your first-round pick who you drafted 8th overall when you could have maybe used some other places, that's a problem. When your play calling becomes too creative and too cute and you only are up 11-3 when the game should have probably been 19-3, who knew that was going to come back and bite you?
Yeah, it was bad. And you mentioned some of that play calling. They had the ball 1st and goal from the 1-yard line, right? They had the procedural penalty. They go to Jonnu Smith twice before Tyler Algier gets stuffed on 3rd and goal. Gabe, no Desmond Ridder to blame. The offense didn't look great for a lot of this game. They had 4 field goals. Do we start blaming the play calling?
Absolutely. The play calling has been very underwhelming, and you look at this roster, you look at the premium picks that they've invested, you look at the money spent on the O-line, you just look at this offense, it should be better than this, right, even with the quarterback shortcomings. And look, I think that the next quarterback that leads this franchise to the playoffs is not on the roster.
Man.
But where they are right now, again, we look at this schedule, I think they're only 4-5 because of the schedule, but they should be a lot better. Look at the quarterbacks they've faced. It's a major disappointment for a team that we thought was going to take a sizable step forward.
Joshua Dobbs this week, like you said, John, had never really played. Will Levis last week is making his first start in the NFL. Goes off. Not good losses for Arthur Smith, who's now 18-25 in his coaching career as the head man for the Falcons. And you posted a GIF on Twitter a little bit earlier today just saying that it kind of called his job into question. Have we got to that point where we need to start having conversations about maybe getting rid of him out of the year?
100% conversations need to be had. You cannot lose games like this over and over again with a schedule that really is the worst in the NFL. You've now lost to Sam Howell. You've now lost to Will Levis, as you mentioned, making his first start, and Joshua Dobbs, who got off the bus. I think they had to make his uniform before the game. Your play calling has come into play. You've already had should I bench my quarterback, should I not? You love to tell us on Monday here in the media that we don't know what we're talking about. But let's be real. He got a pass for 2 years because the previous regime completely screwed the pooch when it came to money and salary cap and everything else, and you played with 2 hands tied behind your back this year. This is your team. You and Terry Fontenot put this together, and if things don't change, not saying he'll get fired today or should get fired today, But conversations need to be had because this division is right there for the taking.
We're clearly all a little bit riled up on this desk, aren't we? I mean,
A lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, that was rough to see. And so we're going to take a second. We're going to breathe. We're going to send out to Maria Martin and Joe Patrick, who actually have more on this game.
Thank you, Reggie. I'm here with our friend Joe Patrick from 92.9 The Game. And Joe, that was not fun.
No, that was the opposite of fun, whatever that is.
Yeah, I don't know. It was really bad if you're an Atlanta Falcons fan or if you're a player or a coach. It's got to be really frustrating, this one, especially when you look at the Vikings. They had former Alpharetta star Josh Dobbs as the third quarterback. He was literally getting to Minnesota 4 days ago.
Unbelievable.
Kevin O'Connell was translating things mid-huddle for him. He was learning things on the fly. That is unreal. How did the Falcons lose this one?
Yeah, it's never good when you lose to a team whose quarterback is passing to numbers instead of their actual names, because he doesn't know them. That's how new he is. And the reason the Falcons lost this game was twofold. It was on both sides of the ball. It was a complimentary loss because in the first half, this team was set up by the defense to score touchdowns, and they did not do it. They were set up at the Vikings' 2-yard line to start a drive. They had to complete a 2-yard drive. They could not do that. They kicked a field goal. They kicked 4 field goals in that first half. And then in the second half, the defense could not stop Josh Dobbs in the moments when it mattered most. They kept on letting him escape the pocket. They were missing sacks and tackles that would have killed these drives, but they just could not do that. And, of course, it results in a really embarrassing Falcons loss here today.
Yeah, a lot of the guys in the locker room said they need to get back to the basics, which is crazy that that's what we're talking about. They were talking about fundamental tackling and doing the right things on offense. Now, when we look forward, Arthur Smith said he's not going to name a quarterback moving forward just yet. They're going to huddle as a team and kind of figure out what that looks like. But what does it mean for the Falcons now? What do you think is going to happen at quarterback?
Well, I don't think it makes any sense to not play Desmond Ridder for the rest of the year. Now, I know that that's a big statement. There's a lot that goes into it. They'll evaluate it more. But just from a longer-term perspective, you might as well see what you have with this younger quarterback. I think what we saw from Taylor Heineke today was average. It was, I don't think, any better or worse than what you've seen from Desmond Ridder in recent weeks, aside from maybe you would say he didn't turn it over quite as much as Desmond Ridder has, especially with the fumbles. But, you know, it wasn't anything special, and I think you could very much envision a game today where Desmond Ridder plays and this team wins. And so I think it's worth just sticking with Ridder for the rest of the season, just because that gives you more knowledge of what to do once you get to the offseason, how you want to move forward at the quarterback position.
Do you anticipate a good bounce back when they play Arizona next week?
I mean, I'd like to say I do, but you never really know.
The hesitation.
I liked what Calais Campbell said in the locker room today, which is like, listen, we need to forget the playoffs, forget all this stuff. We need to play one solid game. So that's what we'll be looking forward to next Sunday.
Not hitting the panic button and making sure there's still a sense of urgency is another thing we heard in the locker room today. Joe, thank you. We will see what happens. Reggie, back to you.
All right, guys, thank you so much. All right, so we're watching that video. We were still upset watching Joshua Dobbs look like Cam Newton. You had a real response when you heard Joe Patrick say that Desmond Ridder should still be starting these games. Taylor Heineke, 21 for 38, 268, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. Has he done enough to keep the starting job, or do you think it should go back to Desmond Ridder?
At least for another week, absolutely. He should still be the starting quarterback. I saw an offense actually move the ball. 28, if I'm not mistaken, is the most points they've scored all year.
Yep.
They didn't score 28 for about a 4-week stretch combined. Why would I turn back? I get it. Desmond Ridder might be the guy that you're going to look to in the future. I'm going to go to what Gabe said. The next quarterback is playing college football right now, because next year with the first pick, you better go out and draft a quarterback and change the direction of this franchise.
Well, Gabe, the issue now is, are they bad enough to get a quarterback that might be able to do the job well enough?
They're fortunate this is a really quarterback-heavy draft. This is a really good draft for quarterbacks, so even if you are picking in round one, that positions you to trade up. It positions you to get one of these guys. I mean, it's not just the obvious guys, but there's also Penix, there's Bo Nix, your guy, Jaden Daniels.
Very good quarterback.
I mean, there's a handful of guys that we're going to be debating this spring, and the Falcons and a lot of these quarterback-needy teams are going to have options.
Well, we talked a lot about this defense coming into this year, and for the most part, they've done a really good job. I mean, in spots, they had multiple turnovers. They got 2 different fumbles, and they, of course, had the safety. But, of course, they let Josh Dobbs run down the field and have that game-winning drive. John, how do we kind of evaluate this game?
It stinks because they did so many things to put themselves in position to win. When you get those kind of turnovers, when you get stops when you need them. Unfortunately, it was the legs and the off-scripted plays of Joshua Dobbs that really hurt him down the stretch. And I think that's where they still miss a premier pass rusher. And that's where at the trading deadline, Danielle Hunter would have been somebody I called for. Yeah, I know Montez Sweat may have got snatched out from under you. I'd have pony up the second-round pick at that point. You need one more guy to put that pressure on without blitzing. I thought they did a good job for the most part. Unfortunately, the legs of Dobbs ended up doing him in.
Yeah, no, it was really a rough watch all the way around. All right, we got to start talking about something a little bit more positive. Georgia, they picked up a big win over Missouri over the weekend and almost had a big man touchdown. We're talking everything college football coming up after the commercial break. Welcome back, everybody. Reggie Chapman, John Michaels, Gabe Burns still alongside me. Let's talk some college football. Georgia's now 9-0 after the 30-21 victory over Missouri on Saturday. The game felt like a slugfest. Dogs trailed by 3 in the third before outscoring them 20-8 the rest of the way. John, I'll start with you on this one. What kind of message did a win over a top 15 team at home send to the rest of the college football world?
I mean, Georgia's still the team to beat. Ric Flair was quoted best say, to be the man, you got to beat the man. Woo! And they're the best thing going. Georgia's still the best thing going. They find different ways to win. You know, Brock Bowers has been out. It's Oscar Delp catching a touchdown this week. It's Carson Beck making throws when he needs to. It's the defense. Big man coming up with an interception when you needed it and just doing enough. Remember, Missouri's a team a year ago that pushed Georgia more than anybody in the regular season. And now they're even better on the offensive side with Cody Schrader and Brady Cook. Luther Burden might be the best receiver Georgia sees all year long.
Insane.
So it was a really good win for Kirby and company, just getting you ready for what's going to happen in December. Another matchup against Alabama and another shot at the college football playoff.
You mentioned the college football playoff. The first rankings came out last week. They came out at number 2. I mean, they've been number 1 for what feels like forever in the AP poll. Number 2 in this first initial rankings. Does a win like this last weekend maybe give them a shot of being back at number 1 over Ohio State, who to this point might have a better resume?
I think they probably should be. I think we all agree that they're better than Ohio State. I'm with Kirby when I say I don't really care about rankings in November, though.
Okay.
I think, again, we look at this team, and, I mean, we just kind of laid it out. Until they lose. And again, we were talking about some of these college quarterbacks. How about Carson Beck?
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like he just keeps getting better. He's been clutch in these big moments, and I'm really curious to see him with these next few weeks and then probably Alabama.
All right, let's continue the positivity, man. For the first time this year on Sports Extra, we get a chance to talk good about Georgia Tech for 2 straight weeks. Incredible. A second straight win, 45-17 over Virginia. Gabe, you had a great article in the AJC this last week that stamped really what you felt like has been this season a success for head coach Brent Key. For the non-believers, can you really explain why this season has been so good? Their
offense is dynamic. Key made a great hire with Buster Faulkner, who obviously did a great job at UGA. I mean, they've got playmakers. Haynes King is, I mean, frankly, he's probably a top 10 to 15 quarterback in the country with the way he's been playing. And we keep going back to these quarterbacks in college, and he's one of the top guys. He has been awesome. He's found a home here at Tech. And again, like, their defense has a long way to go, and they're nowhere close to being where you want to be. But considering where they were, the strides that they have made, and really strides they've made in a short amount of time, I think is really encouraging.
The last couple of weeks, you saw this team really kind of ramp it up on offense. I mean, you just look at the stats: 417 total yards, 7 of the last 9, 30 or more points in each of the last 5. Gabe, I stole both those stats from you in your article. John Michaels. Georgia Tech beat Miami, and Haynes King has obviously been very good this year, but over the last couple of weeks, it feels like the run game has been so electric, and this offense has really become more balanced.
Yeah, it absolutely has, and one of the great things for Georgia Tech is you add that quarterback dynamic, which is something they haven't had all the time, and I'm talking about quarterback dynamic with his legs. That's something in college football when all breaks down, and you have a guy in the backfield that now you have to account for that can break out and run for 30 or 40 yards. I just think about Brent Key, how close they were to this being a really special season. Late game, unfortunate against Louisville. Blow a game against Bowling Green. Have a tough loss against Boston College. This could easily be a 7-win type football team. I love Coach Key. I truly think he is the guy that's going to get them. They're not going to be national title good, but if Georgia Tech can be consistently 9-10 win good and start keeping the kids locally home, all of a sudden that becomes a program people are really looking forward to.
It's crazy how much a couple of weeks changes things, right? I mean, after the losses, it's been like, well, Brent Key's currently not getting the job done, and the week after that, he comes home with a really big win. The momentum is in the right direction. They're only 1 win away from being bowl eligible, of course, headed on the road to face off against Clemson, a team with the exact same record, weirdly enough. They also have Syracuse and Georgia. One more win to get to bowl eligibility, Gabe. Do you think they get it done, and how do they do it?
I think they'll beat Syracuse, so I do think they'll get it done. I'm interested to see this Clemson game because obviously this is not Clemson of before, even with their win over Notre Dame. And then Georgia, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to, we all kind of know what to expect there. But I do think they get there, and I think that would be huge. Consider where this program was under Jeff Collins. I mean, this program was in shambles.
Disaster.
About a year ago, a little over a year ago. I mean, it was a mess. to be where they are now. I mean, I think this offense is going to be really appealing to recruits and you guys in the transfer portal too. I think there's some real momentum with this team.
And boy, it's a lot more fun covering this team when they're good and they're not an absolute disaster. All right, let's kind of get off the positive. I hate to do it, but we got to talk about Georgia State and really what was kind of a beatdown over the weekend at home against undefeated JMU. They came out flat, got outscored 35-7 the final 3 frames in the loss, and to say head coach Sean Elliott wasn't happy would be an understatement. Take a listen.
Well, it's pretty obvious that we got our ass kicked today by a pretty good football team. And they get all the credit. James Madison's a good football team, coming in here undefeated. Man, best defense in the league, all that stuff right there. You'd have thought we'd have doggone showed up to the party today to doggone fight this team. You got the 23rd ranked team in the country. They're 8-0, they're undefeated, they're tops in our leagues. And we come out and we put a doggone effort like that in the second half. It makes no sense to me. It's the last time we will play like that. That's the last time this football team will play like that. It's an embarrassment. It is an embarrassment. Yes, everything. Lack of fight, lack of focus, lack of effort, lack of coaching, lack of execution, lack of playing. Everything. Lack of fan support, lack of it all.
Now, boy, does that fire you up, man? Wow. Wow. Georgia State 6-3 at this point. Gabe, what does it mean that you have a coach like that cares this much? And does that just mean that the bar has kind of been set higher, that he wants more for this program?
Yeah, who doesn't like a good coach rant, right? No, Sean Elliott's a good coach, and he's been doing a nice job there. JMU they're a freaking machine, man. They really are.
I'll send my son right now to play for that. I wish more coaches were like that. Have that passion. Don't give me coach speak afterwards. He said they stunk at every phase and wish they made a better effort. It's my kind of coach.
The bad part is after I watched it the first time, the first thing I thought was, man, if we could get some sort of response like that out of Arthur Smith. I mean, he's feeding around the bush, not giving us a correct answer on who's at quarterback. I mean, but Sean Elliott has obviously cared a lot about this program, and they're headed in the right direction. I guess that is going to kind of be their next step. All right, let's talk some basketball. Coming up after the break, the Hawks. They've won 4 straight games, and we're going to talk about what's working for them. All that and more after the break. Welcome back to Sports Extra, everybody. With all the football going on, the Hawks have been sneaky good to start the 2023 season. Lost their first 2 games, but have won their last 4. Top 2 in the NBA in scoring, 122.8 points per game. Gabe, we'll start with you on this. I know it's early, I know, but at what point do we just think like, hey, this is what the Hawks are supposed to look like, and we kind of get excited about it?
We stress again, it's very early.
Well, yeah.
But if you were thinking of the Hawks over, if you were kind of giddy about this team, it really goes back to Quinn Snyder. Just having the full year and just seeing how this team looks. Yeah, I mean, offensively they're humming right now. Jalen has taken a big step forward. I want to see more A.J. Griffin minutes. I think he's going to be a big part of this thing. But it's so early right now. But again, for the sample size we have, you can't help but to feel pretty good about where this team is trending.
I feel like last year, so many times we were like, all right, don't get excited because they would win one and they'd lose one. Win one, they'd lose one. It feels like they're playing better defense. They're scoring the ball well. There's a little bit more movement. Trey's moving off the ball. We'll talk about Trey in a second, but defensively, are you liking what you're seeing from this team? Because that's something that's been a question mark for forever.
So far, so good. And a lot of it has to do with their getting runs in certain times. It always felt like last year, game would be close, and then there'd be a third quarter where they'd get outscored 40-28. I don't feel like they're having those problems this year. It feels like right now they're getting a lot more stops. I like Jalen Johnson. I know John Collins was a guy that got a lot of criticism here. Jalen has stepped his game up. And I think the biggest thing, defense leads to offense, and it's going to lead to some easier shots. And when you're getting over 122 points a game, you get that a lot of times from the defensive end.
There seems at times there have been question marks whether this was Trae Young's team. DeJounte Murray comes there and he's been playing really, really well, but it once again feels like this team goes as Trae Young goes. I mean, he's playing really, really well. Mm-hmm. Gabe, what have you been most impressed with, and have you seen a difference with him this year after having a training camp with Quinn Snyder?
You know, I think he's just kind of playing within himself. I don't see any of the little recklessness that we've kind of seen at points before. I think he's doing a nice job running the offense. And you mentioned that about DeJounte. Look, I thought it was a huge deal, obviously, him signing that extension. Not just because you're keeping him, but you don't have that hanging over this season. And we've seen a lot of teams where you have that guy hanging over and you don't know what's going to become of it. Is he going to leave? Is that going to lead to a trade request? So I think just having these guys settled in, these young guys are getting the opportunity. You see what Quinn has settled in. I kind of like how everything is coming together, but again, we've got a long way to go.
His career averages and points are down by like only 3 points, but so are his turnovers. Those are down. His assists are up. He's playing really well, but you mentioned Jalen Johnson. I mean, he's been incredible. He's getting more of a chance to really play. 14.5 points per game. He was averaging 5.4 before. Is he finally showing why he was worth that first-round draft pick?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the size and the athleticism we already knew were there. Sometimes it's just a matter of guys in this league getting a chance to play. If you're one of the 15 men that are on this team, you can play basketball. It's just a lot of times getting a guy a chance, and now all of a sudden you can see his confidence growing. You can see that the guards aren't afraid to give him the ball. I think John Collins over the last couple of years, I hate to compare everybody to John, but John had gotten to the point where he was a stationary jump shooter and had gotten away from the rim runs that he did so well. Jalen's giving you some of that athletic ability, and then on the defensive side, he can be an eraser because he's so long, he's so tall, and can jump out of the gym.
I mentioned that Trae Young is leading the team in scoring, but right behind him is DeJounte Murray. And you mentioned that contract extension. What are you seeing that he's bringing to the floor on this team?
You know, it's just, I love the way he plays, just the nature of how he plays. And it sounds kind of stupid to say that. It sounds kind of basic, but at the same time, it's just he's aggressive. He's just got a tough mindset. I think that this team needed that before he got here, and now he's really settled in and been part of this thing. It's fair to ask what's the ceiling of the team that your two best players are Trae and DeJounte, but again, I think things are going to continue to mesh better for them, and I really like what Murray brings.
Yeah, and it feels good that they're winning games, and they're. I mean, you mentioned how things used to bog down in the past. They were the team that kind of took over late against the Pelicans this last time out, and that's a really, really good thing. All right, coming up, we're going to wrap this game up, or wrap up the show with our video of the week, and it is a good one. We'll see you guys in a couple minutes. Welcome back, everybody. Our video of the week is the only thing that matters this weekend. 6'3", 320 pounds, Nazir Stackhouse, the interception, and rumbles down the field. It was called back because of a penalty, but the memories we'll live with forever, Gabe.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love that? Look, he could play. He could go on and have a 12-year NFL career. That's probably going to be the only time he experiences something like that.
Yeah, the big guys like that are not supposed to have the ball in his hands. I got to give Stackhouse credit. He was trying to get to the end zone. I mean, he was rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, like the great Chris Berman used to say. What a moment.
Yeah, it was incredible, man. Carson Beck said, dude had a backpack on his back. He didn't keep it moving. Lift your legs up. All right, and he said his issue is he's got too much weight up front, and I kind of
He's got too much weight everywhere.
Yeah, well, he's good at his job, though, and I guess that's all that matters. Guys, thank you guys so much for coming on the show, and thank you guys for watching. That's it for Sports Extra this week. Have a great weekend. We'll see you guys next week.